Okay, so I have prepared a presentation for you which is intended to be an overall update. And I have to tell you that it was very hard to put everything into what is my time this morning, so I'm going to move pretty quickly. And I also have to acknowledge that in some cases I'm kind of delivering higher level messages, but I have also tried to build in some particular facts or particular instances that I think will be of interest to you. And of course, I'll be glad to take questions both at the end and then later on if there are others. So, you know, I have to start by telling you that we have an awful lot going on at Exlibris, and I really want to touch on all of it. So you'll forgive me as I just kind of keep moving through everything. Probably the most important message, though, that I want to deliver is a thank you message. We are always grateful to you for being our customers. We have a wonderful, wonderful partnership, and we're just so grateful. The way in which we work at Exlibris really depends on our partnership with you. The partnership is, as you can see, continuing to grow. We're grateful for that as well. But I just, want to make sure to say thank you for being our customers. So, like everybody else, we've had an interesting year, interesting 12 months of change at Exlibris. We have a new president, Oded Sharfstein. We're working in a new sales model that I'll say a little bit about. We announced 4 weeks ago that ProQuest and therefore Exlibris being acquired by Clarivate. And of course, we have all of the changes going on in your world, in the world of higher ed, and in the world in general. Let me just say a bit about Oded. Oded has actually rejoined Exlibris. He was the chief financial officer at Exlibris until 2016. That's the time of the acquisition by ProQuest. Before that, he was actually a product manager, and he ran our Asia division, and then he became CFO. So he knows you, he knows the library market, he knows our products, and we're very, very pleased to have him as our leader. The acquisition, as I have said to some of you, it is an acquisition which was announced about 4 weeks ago. Clarivate, which is a publicly traded company that is traded on the NASDAQ, is acquiring Exlibris and all of the Exlibris companies. The deal has not closed yet. We expect it to close in the next 6 weeks or so. But until it closes, there's a great deal that we're not allowed to do or allowed to say. Because in a publicly traded company, you always have to assume for the welfare of the shareholders that the deal might not happen. And so you're not allowed to do a great deal of planning or reorganizing ahead of time. So, believe me, I know there are things you want to know. There are things we certainly want to know as well. And we'll share with you whatever we can just as soon as we can. Perhaps the one point that I can make, though, is there's very little product overlap. This is not a situation in which there are competing products where we might have to make some of those kinds of decisions. And so that's a good thing. I think this is going to allow us to simply expand how our solutions all kind of work together. And things are changing a lot in higher education. We know that, a lot of it motivated, I think, by the pandemic. And so our ability to work a little bit broader with some additional solutions from Clarivate, I think, will be good for you. Just a note, I noticed this morning that Ellucian is being acquired. Ellucian, of course, has many student information systems, and their acquisition was announced this morning. So it's just another sign, I think, of all the change going on in the market. Just to make sure that you know that Shlomi Kringle, Tamar Sharir-Bazar, and Guy Ben-Parat are the 3 leaders of the 3 business units inside Exlibris. Tamar is also new to the organization. She came in January when Devere Hoffman departed. And so we've got a team there that are running our 3 business units and, of course, talking very much to each other and hopefully to you. And, of course, then there are all of us who are more customer facing. Thankfully, this group of people is really quite stable. And I think you know many of them. I did note this a minute ago. Also in January, we have kind of put the sales teams of ProQuest and Exlibris together in some new ways. So while there is a team still of software specialist sales, people like Brent Herlong, who some of you may know, they now work more closely together with your ProQuest account manager. And so you should feel free to talk to your ProQuest account manager about things Exlibris and vice versa, because they now work in a much more coordinated way. And frankly, this is something that you as customers have been asking us for. You know, you've been telling us it's just too hard to figure out who's who. So now really it's your ProQuest account manager who is kind of the go-to person on the ground. So what are we hearing from you in this as we start to reopen? You know, what are we hearing out there in the world? Well, we're hearing from you that everything is what's going on with collections, that because of the pandemic, perhaps everything kind of flipped over. And, you know, we knew that was more or less inevitable, but it really has come to pass. We're seeing new needs emerge from that, things like controlled digital lending. We know that virtual learning is probably here to stay in one form or another. The power of the cloud, which makes solutions accessible from more places, became more apparent with the pandemic. We all learned to collaborate in new ways. I'm not sure we had a choice, but that was a good thing. Of course, diversity, equity, and inclusion has become very, very significant. And what I have seen as I have talked with many of you is that the respect for the library increased during the pandemic. The library's ability to quickly shift to delivering services as they were required by closing and opening and back and forth. However, your budget pressures this year at least do not seem to have gone away. What does that mean for us? It means that we need to take what you're experiencing and work with it and try to bring you the very best solutions that we can. So around collections, that means more automation, and it also means trying to simplify the solutions, particularly Alma. It means looking very hard at controlled digital lending. We actually already have some aspects of controlled digital lending at work in Alma D in particular. Now we're looking to expand controlled digital lending. And of course, we have to keep working to make sure that we have the very best metadata possible. To meet your need for remote education, teaching, learning, that means for us, of course, working more closely with Leganto and embedding Leganto into the teaching and learning landscape at your institution. Around collaboration, it means working hard on resource sharing, which we are. And I'm going to tell you a little bit about that as we go along. Of course, we know about the power of the cloud, so we're pleased to see that. And I will say quite a lot about diversity, equity, and inclusion at the end. Excuse me. What I will say is unchanged is our commitment, both to academic libraries and to helping you as a library work more closely on your campus and with your institution around both teaching and learning and research. So the things that we have said to you in the past have not changed in terms of our basics. We want to collaborate with customers, and I think we're doing more of that than ever before. We want to make sure the platform continues to grow. We want to have better customer experience, and I'll say some more things about that. And we want to make sure that our ecosystem continues to be as open as possible and that our dealing with content is as neutral as you would expect of us. You're going to hear a lot as I go along about quality and customer satisfaction and customer experience. I just want to note a few of the most important things, I think. The new status page, online chat, which you guys have embraced and which I'm pleased to say has now expanded to Alma, Leganto, Primo V, and CDI in North America. So the online chat experience, you continue to tell us, is a good one. Our new online performance reports that started to be available in April that tell you a lot more about how the solutions are actually working. And finally, our continuing growth of materials for you to use as you work with our solutions. We're continuing to work very, very hard on that, both in terms of expanded content and in terms of expanded capabilities globally. Okay, I want to run through, and I know I'm running, so I apologize, but I want to go through the solutions, just kind of noting some important things about all of them. I'm going to start with Discovery, then go to Alma. So Discovery, of course, we continue to support multiple flavors of Discovery, from the biggest differentiations, Summon, Primo, and of course Primo V. All of the Discovery solutions are now served by the Central Discovery Index. The Central Discovery Index became the index last year. There is continuous development around CDI and the best way to utilize it, but it is giving us an opportunity to keep the flavors of Discovery, but to do more efficient development, because we can utilize pieces and parts in different ways with this approach that we're taking with one index to serve all the flavors. CDI, as you know, is huge. So over 4.5 billion records now. It is backed up in the sense that there are 3 instances of it around the world, which makes sure that it should never go down. We now have about 2,600 institutions who are using CDI, and probably a few more since this slide was done a month ago. And every week we see about 44 million searches. The work that we're doing, we want to accelerate rights processing. We really want to get that to 48 hours or less. We continue to work on enhancing metadata quality. I'm going to say something more about this. There's a big linking initiative going on, and of course our work on DEI, which I also will say some more about. Then moving next year into continuing those, particularly around data quality and rights processing, and then adding more and more of the features that I think make our discovery services, those that you supply from the library, the kind of thing that will draw your users because you can give them easier pathways to research. So one of those is quick links. This is a project which is started already, not released yet, but this is a project to give your end user more of that experience that they expect, which is a single click to the PDF itself. More and more of the content that you are acquiring, of course, is in PDF. Nobody likes to be, go from here to a landing page to something else. And so we are working on this project of quick links to be single click from the citation to the PDF itself. We have some experience with this in terms of the fact that the Summon Discovery Service has had this on paywall for more than a year. And so we're able to learn some things from that, and now we are broadening it across additional PDF sources for you. Also in Discovery, we continue to work on searching and ranking. That goes on all the time. We recently released, I think it was in April, we released a new accessibility report for Primo that was done by an outside agency that we use called DQ. So we're WCAG 2.1 compliant. We have published it, and we continue to publish what additional steps we are taking around accessibility in the Knowledge Center. And then Primo V, my gosh, Primo V adoption now is huge. Some of you, of course, were pioneers with Primo V. We have recently moved several of the big consortia to Primo V, including the University of Wisconsin. And so, this has really become kind of the standard discovery solution with Alma. And I'm really pleased to say that, people are continuing to adopt Primo V because it does offer some very important capabilities to you when mated up with Alma, and especially things like no publishing. So any work that you do on records in Alma appear immediately in Primo V, which I think has to be considered to be one of the primary benefits of it, but there are many others. We're focusing, of course, on improving quality. You can see that we're making progress here on quality in Primo V. And as I said, quality improvement, user experience improvement is probably the highest level theme that you're going to see here. Okay, what about Alma? There are 4 areas of focus currently for Alma: quality, extensibility, simplicity, and serviceability. So from a simplicity point of view, we did some interviews and we talked specifically with users who represent sort of, the smaller library, the one that doesn't have quite as many specialists. And they all told us the same thing, that the system should hang together a little more tightly in a way that is better and easier to understand. And so from that, we are taking that guidance and working to make simplicity one of the themes that you're going to begin to see more and more in Alma. Not take away functionality, but make it easier to understand how you get from here to there, and make it easier to comprehend what those pathways are that you're taking. And so, we've done some serious work with that. We've had a hackathon. We're working on things like simplifying analytics, which I think you all would agree would, be really benefit you and have some better out-of-the-box reports, and continue to sort of reorganize around Alma in such a way that it just seems more straightforward. From an extensibility point of view, we believe that Alma, in fact, all of our solutions are really on an open platform, but I think that cloud apps, which we introduced last year, is really the proof of that now. You can today create an app to use with Alma, and we will host it on the platform, making it available to others easily and freely. We're seeing lots of use of this. There are now more than 30 apps, lots of institutions using it, and some really cute and good solutions coming up. Things like the HathiTrust Availability app, things like load patron records from a spreadsheet app, things that you were able to create and we are able to make available to the community through the cloud apps structure. Quality. I have to say this is probably internally the biggest theme. We really are working hard on quality. I know some days it doesn't always feel like that, but we really are. About 50% of our development resources around Alma are involved in quality improvement plans, and it's a long-term strategy. In order to achieve it, we have to think about the way we work. We have to make sure that we have structures going forward that we absolutely commit to so that we have consistency. And I think we're making some progress there. On a serviceability point of view, we're looking at how you interact with the system as users, not the functionality. And we're doing things like, honestly, we're discussing the release cadence. Should we finally move away from monthly releases is an active discussion. No decision yet, but an active discussion that's going on with the Illuna Steering Committee and the Alma Product Working Group. Is this something that we really should be changing, and can we achieve what we need to for you if we do that? That's a big decision to make. It's one that we wouldn't make without input from users, but we're thinking about it. We're of course continuing to work on documentation, and I'm going to say a little bit more later on about the Alma first year program and chat. Have we succeeded? If we say we're working on all this stuff, have we succeeded in improving things? Well, I think we have. These are some statistics from last year where we looked at the particularly slow screens and got some significant improvements in terms of performance, also in terms of API performance. So these are 2 examples of where a concerted effort is really paying off. There are other areas that we're working on this year, but I think we're making progress here. You may have noticed more and more of the user experience in Alma looks a little fresher. We're not committing to doing everything at once, but we are working through new layouts. You've seen the side-by-side layout now. You've seen the slide outs, and you've seen the use of cards. We're going to continue to include more of these as we try to make Alma more straightforward for you to use. And we're going to be applying this across acquisitions first, then the repository services, meaning like cataloging, then configurations, and ongoing. Just one specific thing I want to mention. Please, if you have not yet shifted to the new metadata editor, you really need to do it, because come October, the old metadata editor, I can't even say it, goes away. So let me say it again. You know, we've kind of pushed this a few times, but for sure now, the classic metadata editor will end in October. I believe we have closed all the functionality gaps, so please, please, if you haven't started to work with the new metadata editor, please start to do that now. We don't want anybody to be surprised. And again, I think our focus on product quality is paying off here in Alma, so I feel good about that too. So those are the two, the two basics that I think pretty much everybody in this group shares. Now I want to talk about the things that we're doing in addition, things that we feel are important for today's academic library, both in terms of efficiency and effectiveness and in terms of working with the community. So let's start by talking about resource sharing, certainly something that the pandemic focused for all of us. If we look at Rapid ILL, we have had a terrific growth of Rapid ILL because of the pandemic. And it's just been wonderful to see how that community has grown. There are now about 500 Rapid ILL users around the world, and more all the time. We've tightened up the Rapid ILL integration with Alma, and we've done a number of things there. And you may have seen this, but the Internet Archive is now a Rapid ILL partner. And so we're very, very pleased about that as well. So the Internet Archive joined the Rapid ILL community. They are fulfilling many, many article requests, and we're just very, very pleased about that. We think that's a great thing. Of course, Rapid ILL, which is used primarily for non-returnables, is not all that you need for resource sharing. And so we are working and have now gone live with the first 4 sites for our new total resource sharing system called Rapido. Rapido includes all of the Rapid ILL functionality, as well as functionality for returnables, as well, and I think most importantly, a whole new model around resource sharing. So, this is just a really terrific thing. Okay, I am having an example of working at home. My doorbell is ringing. I will be right back. And I'm sorry about that, but I will be. I'll be right back.
Don't forget, you can use the chat to ask questions while Jane is presenting, so feel free to participate.
I am so sorry about that, everybody. Thank you so much for putting up with it. I had a little experience yesterday in which the water in half of my house went out. So I obviously had to answer the door and let the man come in.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was a little, all of a sudden I had no showers on the one end of my house. Anyway, going back to Rapido, Rapido is really something that we're doing because we feel like everybody is ready for some new models of resource sharing. And so, this is the experience that your users get when they go to Amazon, and yet the experience that they get when they're trying to have you interlibrary loan something for them is very separated and very different than this. And so what we're building is something which is much more patron intuitive, patron activated, using the principles put out by the Big Ten a number of years ago, and moving, really into a brand new model. Also, Rapido is being developed as a very open system. It's intended to work in addition to other solutions. We would love it to be your primary solution, but we know that it will need to bridge to other systems in order to fulfill everything that you need. And so that's the way we're building it. We're actually working with the reshare community. We're working with, a number of other capabilities. So those are the initiatives. As I said, the first 4 sites are now in production, which is thrilling for us. It was developed with a very involved group of development partners. It will allow us to extend our controlled digital lending solutions, as well as providing things like, eBook, interlibrary loan, etc. On the topic of CDL, which is something everybody is talking about, I saw another announcement this morning. I really think that what we have to do with CDL is we have to sort out what it is. It seems to me to be having many interpretations. And so what we're trying to accomplish is, first of all, we're in the process of gathering a customer advisory group to literally help us define what it is and what should it be, because I see different people having very, very different interpretations of what controlled digital lending really means. Things like the loan to own ratio, etc. So, I feel like we have some good foundational capabilities in the systems already, but really this is more about making sure that it's possible within your institution and also within your resource sharing communities. Because resource sharing has to be part of a bigger picture. Nobody can be on their own anymore. I think the pandemic sort of proved that to us if we didn't know it already. And then you want it to be integrated into things like acquisitions. So those are all the ways in which we're trying to go about this. I also want to make sure that you noted the announcement during eLuna of a community interlibrary loan platform, having nothing to do with us or our solutions, but a place for you to share your questions and experiences. This is our first online community. Well, you can't really say that because we've had these very active listservs for a long time, but really this is kind of, the bigger, broader community, and we hope that you'll sign up. We hope that you'll take a look at it and see what's going on. If Rapido brings interlibrary loan more tightly integrated into your day-to-day library management system, which I believe it does, Rialto does the same thing for selection. And you may have heard about Rialto from your ProQuest rep, for example, because Rialto was a project done in conjunction with ProQuest. So Exlibris and ProQuest both worked on it together. It's a solution that lives on the Exlibris platform, and it is a brand new model for selection. So with Rapido bringing ILL in, Rialto brings selection in. Rather than selection being this separate thing on a separate platform, be it Oasis or Gobi, where you then have to come back and flop around in both systems, Rialto really is all about very efficient workflows, making it easier and more efficient for you to decide what to acquire and then to acquire it in a more seamless way. Everybody works in the same system, so there's none of this kind of back and forth checking. you know, let me check Gobi. No, let me come back and make sure in Alma we haven't ordered it. Let me check Gobi again. You know, we've taken out all of that. So you've got a much more efficient set of workflows. And you have information at your fingertips at the time of selection that tell you things that previously had to go back and forth. So a book you are considering from the selection marketplace is already in your institution. The system kind of telling you all of that right away. The marketplace is a content neutral marketplace. It includes, for example, all of the EBSCO ebooks. You know, we add suppliers to it all the time. The beauty of it is it's just embedded there, so you can get to it, and it's sitting next to what we already know in Alma about your collections. So you get real-time fund information as well as the ability to know right away that you have something already, or that another selector is already considering it in their selection cart. So we hope it's transformative. Rather than using static profiles, Rialto supports data-driven recommendations. So recommendations don't go away, they're just done in a much more modern way, and one I think you'll like. So Rapido and Rialto, I consider them to be the ability to bring these things more into your system and give you more efficiency. But what we know about you within your institution is that there's stuff going on at teaching and learning and stuff going on at research. And so we're working very hard at giving the library the ability to be really tied into that kind of a role, starting with Leganto. There are now 250 Leganto customers. I have to say, Leganto has been really appreciated during the pandemic. It really allowed the library to be right there in the courseware with those course list items, rather than working in the old way of separateness that actually required getting into the library, which wasn't possible. Leganto made it very, very possible to have things easily accessible to users, whether they were able to be on campus or whether they weren't able to be on campus. And what we hear from faculty is that they want that library involvement, that they appreciate that library involvement. And it's been just a terrific, terrific solution, and one I really would urge you to take a look at. You know, it's really making course lists much more accessible. It gives the faculty visibility into the entire library collection as they are making choices for what they want to put in the curriculum. And it's really showing off the value of the library to the faculty in a place where they really want and need the library involvement. So it allows course lists to be very, very accessible, as I said, and to be tightly integrated with the library's learning management system. Maximizes the use of collections. Actually, in some cases, really saves money, because often the faculty member isn't aware the library already licenses this content. Now that's much more apparent. And I just have to say that this is a solution that just is getting very, very good reviews. People really, really like it. We're coming up on some new capabilities within Leganto. It has a very active user community now. We're going to be adding things like responsive reading, allowing end users, that is students, to annotate the resources. That gives faculty some immediate feedback they couldn't get in other ways, and we'll be moving on to assignments and grades. The other side of it, the other side of your institution, and one, again, that the pandemic really highlighted, is working with research. The ability of your institution to get grants has become more important than ever. And so our offering called Esploro, managed with our offering called Pivot, are really very important, we think, to allow the library to take on an important role with the research side of your institution. We know that researchers say that they spend an awful lot of time on tasks, frankly, that the library could do in a better way, in a more thorough way, in a more accurate way. And that they really would just as soon have your help with it. Often, however, they don't think about your help. They don't think about the library. And so what we're trying to help you accomplish with Esploro is a much better way of having this relationship between the library and the research part of campus. That offering is called Esploro, and Esploro consists of a number, it's a family of solutions, I would say. It's all around a next generation repository that we call the Research Information Hub. It actually uses artificial intelligence to scan the environment for research that might not have been reported to the repository and automatically gather it in. We call that smart harvesting. It provides for direct and mediated depositing, making depositing into the repository much faster and easier. And then it uses that repository to provide a research portal, researcher profiles that are automatically updated, visibility to funding opportunities, great analytics, and a whole series of APIs. And so while Esploro is still a young solution, there are only 30-some customers that are live with it. It really is, we think, one of those solutions that will provide tremendous value to both the library and to the institution as a whole. There's a brand new paper about smart harvesting if you want to take a look at it. I think it's a really interesting study of our use of artificial intelligence and how we're actually having Esploro go out and hunt. You know, here's a faculty member, go hunt all that stuff from early in their career that they never deposited and bring it in. It's kind of a, you know, it's kind of magic actually. And it results in these kinds of statements where we can talk about the demonstration of value. Okay, so that was a quick run through of many solutions. Now I want to touch on some of the operational aspects at Exlibris, content being the one I know is always on your minds. You know, our content operations team actually has about 90 staff, and that group sitting here at Exlibris, of course, works with you and also works with all these content providers. So this is really, you know, one of those situations where we have to be kind of in the middle, and we accept that role and like that role. It's really about acquiring content, ingesting it, cleaning it up, aligning it, and making it available for you. Today, we work with 58,000 collections, 70 million holdings, and those collections just keep growing and growing. That results, of course, in the opportunity for things like the CDI. You know, there's a difference between the community zone and the Central Discovery Index. The community zone is title-oriented and package-oriented. The Central Discovery Index is article-oriented, but we need them both, and they both need to be as good as possible, and we know that. So we keep working and working and working on this. Data quality is one of this group's high areas of focus, as well as the other groups, and they're working very hard at this. We've expanded our group of content support people. In fact, we have a group now based in Ann Arbor, Michigan, and we're working, I have to say, really hard. I know some days it feels like, you know, we have more errors, but we really are working very hard at this. And with 58,000 sources, we're bound to have some problems, but we do keep working on it. As I said, we're trying to get the rights processing for CDI into the 48-hour window, making progress on that, not quite finished yet. Also for Primo, we want to allow you to see where a source is being activated from, because of course with the merged record in CDI, that has become important. Another one of our operational groups that you might not hear a whole lot about is a group that we have called Customer Success. They of course work with the customer support group too. But customer success is about being a little more proactive and really helping people get the most value. They were important in that new status page that I described. They have been very important in working with chat. And, you know, like I said, If you haven't used chat yet, you might want to think about it. You have to activate a user role in order to have someone be able to use chat. But the people who are using chat are finding that problems get solved more quickly, and their satisfaction rate is really terrific. So, you know, we're now doing Primo V as well as Alma and Leganto and CDI via chat support if you like. And, you know, what I hear from the support folks is that people do really, really like it. Yep. So there are good statistics there. Sorry, that was a little pre-recorded commercial. Another program that we have is a program for new Alma sites. You know, you all are veterans. Thank you very much for that and being our customers. But we have recognized now that a new Alma customer needs a little more support after go live. And so we have started a program which provides for kind of monthly calls and working on a consultancy basis with a new customer for a year or so after go live. So far the reviews are pretty good on this, and so just want you to be aware of that. Also, we have a series of programs that we're trying to roll out to help those of you who are more veteran customers. We're going to start doing an annual business review with you where we can kind of go over your total experience and see if any knowledge gaps are emerging. We're working to make sure that you know what it is that you might not really understand. You know, it's really hard once you get settled into your workflows, is that you know, there might be things that just kind of have slipped through the cracks. And so we have what's called a health check now to help spot some of those in an automated way, and then we can call and talk with you about it, and you know, just kind of work through this. It's a real challenge for us because there are quite a few Alma customers, and we can't hire a herd of people, but we are working on this, and it's going well. I can't say that it is completely rolled out, but I'd love to, you know, to talk with you individually about it if you need that. And finally, you know, diversity, equity, and inclusion. What are we doing about this? After the first day of eLuna, when we were looking at the topics that people talked about, there was one comment back to Alan Jones that said, you should just talk about nothing but diversity, equity, and inclusion. That is what is really very, very important, and we know that. So we are taking an approach around DEI that has 3 areas of activity: products and technology, employee diversity and education, and community collaboration. Around products and technology, and around all of them, we're trying to be very action-oriented, and I think we are. I think we are being action-oriented. We're not just talking, we're really trying to do things. So around products, we have to make sure that there is no bias in our products. It's very, very important. And it's a problem that we're aware of, and of course, acutely aware of in discovery. You know, we gather content in discovery from many suppliers, including your catalog records. Any of those sources could inadvertently include some content that is no longer acceptable, and if we're not careful, can bring some bias to searches. We're very aware of it. Let's face it, some of our old subject headings are one of the worst offenders in this. So we're actually educating our teams and educating our staff, and we're very aware of this. We have now created, and if you haven't found it, I'll tell you about it. We have created an email for anything that you find that you think might be inadvertent bias. So you can report it to us anonymously and we will investigate it. We have, in fact, in the CDI, shut down a few terms at the request of the working group to make sure that we're not showing anything which is offensive. But it's important for us to say, you know, that we're aware of this and we know that we have a responsibility. We're conducting reviews, and we're building tools. So we're building tools that allow us to block, suppress, and down boost combinations that you report to us so that we can guard against unintentional bias. In terms of our employees, who of course are the ones that build our systems, we have to make sure that we have a diverse group of employees, and I think we can say that we do. We're a pretty global organization these days. You know, there's about 800 people at Exlibris today. But we have actually been actively educating them around these issues around bias. Things like we hired Sophia Noble. She's the author of that very famous book called Algorithms of Oppression. She actually did a training course for our developers to help raise their awareness. And it was successful. And she delivered in a way that really, you know, kind of worked with her. She's also going to keynote at the eBUG conference, our International User Group conference. We recently took our developers through a discussion of Change the Subject, that documentary from Dartmouth about unintentional bias in things. And again, that was a good way of kind of making them aware of how vigilant they have to be on this. Of course, within the ProQuest family, we have many, many other programs that are related to diversity, equity, and inclusion. But I think we're right in the middle of it. I feel like we're real active here. And then finally, we have to work in the community. We have to work with you, and we have to work with the user group. And so we have created now an advisory board made up of customers from both North America and the rest of the world to work with us very carefully about bias, mitigating against bias, and developing some tools that you can use at your site. Now, we're just doing the definition of this now, but our approach is going to be to provide you with the ability to block certain things in your discovery service so that you are not showing in discovery things that may be offensive to people. This is going to vary, you know, it's going to vary around the world. And so, you know, we're working with the advisory group to think through how we can do this in such a way that it's usable by you, not you know, a burden, and at the same time effective. We're committed on this. I mean, we really are committed on this. Judith Frankel, who is one of our managers, is leading this effort. She's done a great job. You may have heard a couple of her addresses that she's made along with our user group. So I've rattled on pretty quickly here. I managed to rattle on even a little faster while answering my door. But, you know, I think the last point I want to make is that it's your voices and your involvement which really help us do the right things. We want to be involved with you. We know that we're all recovering and responding, but you know, all the community efforts are there. They're all active. There's a few more coming along, things like the DEI advisory group. But you know, this is important work that we're doing. And we feel that we're doing it together, where from your input, we build and maintain the solutions. We feel like that puts you in a place where you can take on the opportunities that your campus is offering for new roles for the library, while gaining efficiency from the things that you need to be doing day after day. And we want to do it with you, and we are so grateful that we can do it with you. Okay. I think I have left a couple minutes for questions, haven't I? Okay.
Yes. And there's actually some questions in
Thank you, Mike.
chat. There's actually quite a bit of discussion about the release schedule. And
for or against?
Well, there's a debate between them.
Okay.
Some of us, like for me personally, I understand the concern about having monthly updates, but yet having monthly updates make them small so that it's easier to narrow down and focus our attention on what's new and try to pin out any issues that may be there. But then if you do quarterly, then there's a whole bunch more updates coming out at once that we have to mull through. And so,
So this is one of the discussions that we're having. And it might be possible for us to do sort of something like put small features out and fixes out on a monthly basis, but bigger functionality on a quarterly basis where you really have then time to consider it and to think about it. You know, that's some of the debate that we're having. And like I said, we're talking with the Aluna Steering Committee. Feel free to give Alan Jones and the others your opinions about this, because, you know, kind of 6 of one, half a dozen of the other. We want to do the right thing.
Yeah, I like the sound of that. Features quarterly and fixes monthly. That sounds like a good balance.
Thank you. Thank you. I'll take that back.
Although I'll jump in real quick. There are times when, you know, we're just so anxious to get a new feature come. And I know when we were using the Primo back office, it was a quarterly release schedule. And when you heard that the new feature was coming, it seemed like there was the temptation to kind of maybe push it off a little bit if the upcoming quarterly release already was pretty full with releases that were already planned and ready to go. So that to me would be a detriment to moving to a quarterly for new releases, for new features that were coming. You know, the monthly, and I'll just say too, with the monthly release schedule, it's been a frenetic world for myself and my staff.
Right.
With Alma, I mean, it's just hard to keep up with everything
Right.
that comes through every single month.
Exactly.
And Joe Ferguson does a good job at our site informing all the users of the new functionalities, the new features, but it's a lot to keep up with. So
I mean, that's the dilemma, isn't it, really?
yeah,
You know.
there are pros and cons, I think, for
Right.
both. For
Right.
us.
And, you know, you guys as veteran users, of course, you know, have your systems and your ways of keeping up with all of this sort of stuff. You know, we have an awful lot of users where we find that's more difficult too. So we're trying to balance this in the right way, and we're still thinking about it. So feel free to keep giving us your opinions. Other questions?
Jane, I want to say real quick that I really appreciated your presentation. There was a lot in here.
I'll send you the slides too, of course. Yeah.
Very interesting developments, not just the consideration of changing the release cadence, but also the hiring of Sophia Noble. I think that's a great hire for Exlibris. Kudos to you guys. I wanted to point out too, I know that every time I hear an update from Exlibris, and I'm just going to be honest here and straightforward, it seems like there's so much emphasis on all the new that's going on. And I know that there is a large staff that is working on your existing kind of flagship products like Alma and Primo, that those continue to get attention. But I will say that sometimes, like just in the case of instances where the products are struggling a bit, like for instance with Alma yesterday, I'm not sure if you follow the Alma listserv, but there were problems yesterday with Alma. Multiple institutions were reporting them. There were Salesforce cases being put in by some institutions. You know, the listserv is kind of like this this odd gauge of what's going on in the world of Alma. Like some people are like, oh, we're not having any problems here at all. And others are like, well, some of our staff are, but others are fine. But then others are like, everything's down for everybody here. Sometimes it feels like there needs to be quicker focus put on when problems happen. And that to me should be the system status page. But just in my experience lately, I know there's been improvements to the system status page, but historically, it always seems like that's the last place that gets updated whenever there's a problem going on with one of the systems. It should be the first, I think. And whenever there are customers that are reporting issues, multiple customers, maybe across a single instance or multiple instances, there should be updates there. And it just doesn't seem to be happening. So I just wanted to bring that to your attention. And in general, you know, applaud you guys for working on a lot of new initiatives, but these flagship products really are bread and butter, and we need to have them working efficiently and as the best they can for all of us.
Right. I completely agree with you, Mike. And in fact, I saw your message to the list yesterday. and I forwarded it to the chief of cloud.
Thank
So
you.
I wanted him to be sure that he had seen it. You know, the cloud support team has an ever-growing responsibility, but that responsibility, number one, has to be, as you say, the systems have to be up, they have to be stable. And, you know, we can build all the functionality in the world. If the systems aren't working, that's not gonna, you know, not gonna help you. So I made people aware of that, and I think they are aware of it. Sometimes, you know, the problems that you're seeing don't show themselves in our automated reporting systems in the same way. And so I've urged people to kind of, you know, pay more attention to the comments that you all are finding too.
Jane, quick question.
Yep.
I was really excited about quick links, and I only joined in as you were talking about it. So forgive me if I'm asking something that you already addressed. Is that going to be included as a basic feature?
Yes.
Is that going to be, oh, okay.
Yeah,
That's
basic
lovely.
feature. Thank you.
And did you give a timeline of when that might be rolled out?
By the, I believe that we're trying to do it by the end of this year.
Okay, fantastic.
It is in dev, and we're doing some testing. You know, what we're finding, of course, is that not all PDFs are the same.
Yes.
But we're having some reasonable success. And so yes, it's going to be a standard feature, and our goal is by the end of the year.
Fantastic. Thank you.
See, there's another question that's ended up in chat from Michael Jones. Have you considered content warning alerts for lists of library defined terms in Primo? I know there are libraries that are putting content warnings locally, item record by item record, whenever a potentially offensive term comes up in a bibliographic record.
Yes, we have. We have not built anything yet, but we are discussing how we might make a capability so that those could automatically come up. It's difficult because it has to be tunable by the institution. A term which is offensive in this country might not be offensive, you know, in Asia, and vice versa. So it's going along with the development that I talked about for the ability for you to locally suppress from display current terms. You know, we've discussed both suppressing and also don't suppress but warn. Yeah, I mean, there's no way that it's possible for you guys to do it record by record.
Yeah.
Yeah, that part at least at least we're very aware of.
I don't see any other questions in chat. Anyone else have anything for Jane?
Well, I want to thank you so very much, A, for being our customers, and B, for letting me give you this update. You know, we're very, very pleased. You guys are a great user group, and I'm looking forward to being with you in person next year. You know, it would be much better for everybody if we can do that. But so thank you so very, very much.
Thank you,
Take
Jane.
good care. Yep.
Thank you very much.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Thank you, Jane.
All right, it's now time for our break, and let's see if we will come back at 9:15 Central, and then we'll have our next training session.